What's up, everyone? Before we get rolling on this episode, I should just let all of you know that I've been doing a bit of soul searching, and I've kind of decided that this episode is going to be the last episode of Chat It Up. I've had a lot of fun doing it, but it's just getting harder and harder to put these episodes out, and there's been some interest in the podcast, but there hasn't been a ton. So as much as I've loved kind of putting all this together, I think it's just really kind of a good time to just kind of call it quits. So the only other thing that I want to say about that is April Fools. So welcome to episode 21. I can't believe that the podcast has grown up and is now officially old enough to drink. I think it's time to take the podcast out to the bar maybe for some shots with some goofy-ass names maybe, and we can get it wasted. If this is your first time listening in, Chat It Up is a bi-weekly podcast about all things Upper Peninsula of Michigan. If you're a loyal listener, welcome back after the extended hiatus. I had to take an extra week off because life was extremely insane, but all for good reasons. Was moving back to my hometown. My girlfriend and I moved back to Kingsford, and at the same time I was selling my house up in Ishpeming, so we were just super busy kind of packing up boxes and basically just kind of getting everything ready for the big move. So thankfully everything went smoothly, and really I'm super happy to be back home closer to family and friends, so all good stuff. So all right, let's jump right into this episode. We're going to start things off with some Yooper news. And I only have one piece of Yooper news this week. And that is that Iron Mountain's own Tom Izzo and my beloved Michigan State Spartans are going to the Final Four, baby. Woo! I cannot begin to express how happy I am. And to not only make the Final Four, but to beat Duke and Zion Williamson to do it is just insanely amazing, insanely huge. It felt very much like David versus Goliath. And I'm just over the moon excited. This team has endured so much this season with injuries and so many other things. To make it to the Final Four is nothing short of incredible. So huge tip of the cap to the Michigan State Spartans and to Tom Izzo doing the UP proud, representing strong for Iron Mountain, going to his 8th Final Four in his 24 seasons, which is super impressive. So if you're a Michigan State fan out there, go green, go white. And if you aren't, well, sucks to be you, I guess. Okay. With that being said, it's time for This Day in Yooper History. Brought to you by the folks over at Pasty.com. That's PASTY.com, and the Pasty Central Facebook page. Now, I know today is April 1st. This Day in Yooper History is actually going to be April 2nd. We didn't have one for April 1st for some reason, so I do apologize. So I guess technically this will be tomorrow's day in Yooper History. So here we go.
Pasty Central Day in History, April 2nd. On this day in 1872, Samuel Morse, the inventor of the telegraph, died. His invention was instrumental in the growth of railroads and industry across the Upper Peninsula. On this day in 1992, Crystal Falls received international attention due to the discovery of a giant fungus in the nearby forest. Announced in articles in Nature and the New York Times, the fungus covers an area of more than 38 acres, with a total mass estimated at 100 tons. One of the largest and oldest living organisms on Earth, the fungus is actually located in nearby Mastodon Township, but Crystal Falls has adopted it as a major attraction and holds a humongous fungus fest each summer in August. Pasty Central Day in History, April 2nd.
All right. Thanks again to the folks at Pasty.com and the Pasty Central Facebook page for another awesome segment of This Day in Yooper History. It's time for this week's interview, and this week I sat down with Mr. Mario Santoni, Mario's the senior project manager over at Dickinson Homes, which is located in the Iron Mountain Kingsford area, and their story is pretty cool. They're a third-generation family business, and they've been building modular homes for since 1970. So Mario and I had a great chat about how they've ran this successful business for nearly 50 years. So without further ado, let's chat it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here with Mario Santoni. Mario, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Happy to.
So I'm sitting here with a fellow Dickinson County guy. Mario, you grew up in Iron Mountain, correct? You're a mountaineer?
Born and raised.
All right. So what was that like for you, I guess? What was growing up here in Iron Mountain like for you at that point in time? Because I think you're a little bit older than me.
I was, I don't know how much I want to give away, but I'm from 78, so.
Okay, so the whole reason I've got you on here today is obviously we're going to be talking about your family business, and I know that you spent a lot of time around the family business as you were kind of growing up. Do you want to talk about what that was like?
Yeah, it was, in retrospect, it's a different look because, growing up and the family business were really just synonymous. There was very little separation growing up. So normal Iron Mountain youth of, playing in the woods, kids, bikes, small town life, a lot of family and enjoying that, and a lot of time out at the lake and everything else. And then kind of interwoven with growing up was always some project with my dad or my grandfather, my uncle, my brother of doing God knows what, probably some sort of child labor law infraction.
Carrying shingles.
Planing wood, unloading stuff. The earliest memory of childhood I have is on a Saturday, my dad having my brother and I over at the factory in Kingsford, and we were supposed to pick up cigarette butts around the whole perimeter and fill a garbage bag. And if we filled this garbage bag, we got a quarter to go to the pop machine and we could get a Mountain Dew. And for us, that was just like gold. Like, we were ripping him off because we would get a pop, but it kept us occupied while he got stuff done. And, that was kind of growing up. But,
definitely a unique perspective that obviously not a lot of kids would get. Yeah. You never think about it growing up because you don't know any better. Right.
But
yeah, that's just your life.
Now that I have kids, it's just like I can't wait to put them through this. It's just karma. But
so you finished school and you headed up to Michigan Tech, correct?
Yeah.
Now I know that. What did you end up getting your degree in when you went to Michigan?
I went to Tech. I went for civil engineering, and then also I ended up staying and getting my business degree.
Okay.
Actually, the first year Tech had an accredited business school.
Sure.
Concentrating in industrial management.
Yeah.
So
now, when you headed up to Tech, it was the plan right from the jump to pursue something to be a part of this family business, or did that kind of evolve over time?
That was more of an evolution because early on, you always have this thought in the back of your head, being able to be part of this. My grandfather started it from nothing, and just, everything that they've got it to weather through all the recessions and storms and everything else.
Sure.
But, at the same time, I think for my 18, 19-year-old self, that was a very overwhelming feeling of
course.
I'm going to be the one that screws it up. That's, my dad, every time we'd go on a car trip, it was always his basically rambling of, it's always the next generation that screws up a business. So I'm just like, I don't want to be that guy. So, no, it was part of the plan at some point. He never pushed hard.
Sure.
Which was, in hindsight, good to have, of kind of get your own path, do your thing.
Sure.
We're here if you need us. So
yeah.
When I started at Tech, there was no immediate plans of that.
Sure. How was the experience for you being up at Tech? I mean, I've interviewed a couple of people that went to State, a few that have gone to Northern, but I think you're probably the first person that I've interviewed that's a Husky. So how was that experience for you?
Well, I'm glad to be representing Huskies. It's probably not everyone gets or makes it the whole time or is dumb enough to stay. But, that's the interesting thing growing up, Dickinson County, you're in the UP, you think, winters are nothing, I got it.
Right.
From Iron Mountain, And then, going up to tech, and I had a lot of people from Iron Mountain and Kingsford that year graduating. I think there's like 18 kids that were going up to tech. And all my other friends were saying, "You're going up to Houghton? Are you nuts? It snows a lot there." I'm like, "From Iron Mountain, this is going to be nothing."
Yeah.
And then reality check kicked in probably 2 weeks before Thanksgiving when that winter was not even a record or banner year, but when we left for Thanksgiving break, the snow was almost up to the windowsill. We were on Wadd's Hall, ground floor, and it was just piling and piling up, and it was just like, oh, this is what they meant.
Yeah. I'll never forget one time I had brought a friend with me up to Copper Harbor, and we crossed a bridge into Hancock, and we're like going up the hill, and my buddy's like, "What's with all the doors on the second story of those houses like that?" He's like, "Were there like decks or something and they just took them all off?" And I go, "No." Back in the old days, there were no snow blowers or anything. I'm like, eventually you ran out of places to put it, so you had to leave your house through the second story. Yeah. He would not believe me. He thought I was lying.
No, that's legit. That's a whole like microcosm of design, not really into architecture, but design, that Keweenaw design. Yeah. And there's studies and historical record and books on it, how they just built a house with a door on the second floor to nowhere.
Yeah.
And usually by Christmas that was the front door.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what you had to contend with there.
Yeah.
Tech is hard enough as it is, and now they sprinkle on no sunshine for a long time and tons of snow and weather, and
it's unbelievable.
And, then going through that is interesting because my brother went to the U of M.
Okay.
And one spring break when I was a senior, he was, I think, his second year down there, and we went down to visit him, before I was done with the collegiate life. And, you leave Houghton, and, by the time you get through Covington, then down Iron Mountain, it's just so much snow, and it's snowing, and you finally make it to the bridge. And we get down to Ann Arbor, we pull up to his apartment, and he's sitting on a couch in his front lawn in sandals and flip-flops with sunglasses. And I'm just like, man, you're soft. Anyone can get an engineering degree when it's 50 degrees or above year-round.
Right. So you finish up at Tech. Obviously, you come back home to essentially be part of this family business. Now, you're essentially the third generation of this company. Can you give a little bit of the backstory as far as, like, when did your grandfather start the company?
That's a good part of our history is after World War II, my grandfather, Evo, moved back, and he had various jobs with Ford in the area. He was part of helping construction as a laborer on the VA hospital and other various items. And then eventually he started his own business, or he bought a business. It used to be Isley's Lumber and Fuel, and he bought it with Santoni Lumber and Fuel for a long time. And then over in Kingsford Heights, he had a cabinet shop where he'd bend Formica at night and everything else and let it sit. And, in his spare time, he would site build homes. And, like this winter we had now, it's a very short season. And, he struggled with that.
Yeah.
And eventually through a business trip through Indiana and some other methods and people, there was a different process for constructing. And, he kind of got a glimmer of that on, doing what he's doing, but now let's start doing it inside.
Sure.
In late 1969, he and my grandmother and my Uncle Paul had moved back to the area at the time. And, they started construction of, really what's still part of our factory today, but it's kind of the first segment, which was really only 20,000 square feet. I think you could build one or two homes at a time.
Sure.
And, you ran with that. And, it was for the area, or even for this part of the Midwest, he was kind of looked at as that crazy guy.
Right.
Trying to do something different, and, it's not in the norm, or it's a weird, or it's never going to be good. And, it worked for him, though. I think out of just being too dumb to fail. And he, just worked and outworked everyone, really. I mean, he wasn't, I think that was his success. And, my Uncle Paul was around, and he really contributed. My father ended up graduating college and came back. And, I think the three of them really just provided all the magic sauce to make that work of just willpower.
Sure.
And it took off, though. I mean, it hit at a right time.
Yeah.
Demand for housing was up, and there wasn't as much supply, and they were able to do more homes faster. And they opened the original factory opened in June of 1970.
Okay.
We got 50 years coming up this June.
Wow.
Or next June, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Math is hard for a tech grad.
I was going to say for a tech grad, come on now.
Very hard. But, the original factory was 20,000 square feet, and then, 4 times they added on just to keep up with everything. And today we're over 100,000 square feet indoors.
Wow. Okay.
So it just worked for them. But.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, you touched a little bit about like this kind of evolution or change, and you've kind of seen some recessions over the years.
Unfortunately.
Well, right. So, I mean, how do you deal with stuff like that? I mean, I know you kind of came back around the 2001.
Came back during the peak and just in time to see the 2008 crash.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you can only speak to that one, but I mean, how do you get through those times? I mean, obviously it's not easy, and a lot of businesses didn't make it through, but you're one of the ones still standing. So I guess
it's an interesting mix, and I think it goes back to the leadership and whoever's hand is on the helm at the time, and even going back to the late 80s, you had hyperinflation and interest rates were like 20%, and my grandfather was there, and my dad and my uncle, and they weathered that. And, my grandfather had weathered, born in the Great Depression. So I guess weathering storms is kind of in his DNA.
Right.
And, I think they learned a lot during that late 80s about, what can happen, what gets affected. And so going into the 2008 crash, was really just, having a healthy balance sheet, not overextending yourself, controlling your environment. If we're not as susceptible to little micro fluctuations in the economies, that can make or break you, but being more even keeled for a long run.
Sure.
When you have a product that's right, the economy will, dip or bolster your sales, but in the long run, you'll be all right. And I think it's just being smart.
Sure.
So going through 2008, it was, operating smarter, being smarter, purchasing, planning better, looking to next year and just, making sure we're in a good position.
Yeah. And,
you alluded to it a lot of people didn't survive, and we saw just in the trades, that really depleted the area.
Right.
Any local direct competition, they moved to the Dakotas for the oil. They got out of the area. They found other jobs. So when things did recover, you weren't faced with as much competition as when that started.
Sure. So you mentioned briefly the purchasing and some of the different things that kind of go into that. Now, I know when you came on, you're basically a project manager. Does that fall?
I started it in engineering.
Okay, so you started in engineering.
And that just did not stick well.
No?
It's just... it's just two different, poles of a magnet. It's just never going to work. So eventually I ended up kind of semi-forcing my way up here.
Sure.
If this was more cut out for the way my mind works. So I started in engineering for a while, and that was a rocky start. So thankfully, they stuck with me, and I ended up here, and here I am.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned, though, engineering, because I think a lot of people outside looking in, when they hear like Dickinson Homes, they would probably just think, oh, it's just prefab homes or modular homes. Mm-hmm. But you guys do architecture, planning, design. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about that? 'Cause,
give away our hidden secrets?
Well, not even hidden secrets. I mean, you can just go on your website and see that you offer more than just, like I said, modular homes. So I find that interesting.
Two things then stop me when I ramble. It's part of my full-time job is, since I've been here, is really just helping to re-educate people. And, there's a big misconception, more in the Midwest than anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I was just out in California, and the perception of modular construction there is the inverse of the Midwest. They can't get enough of it.
Sure.
We're always struggling to be not in the shadow of trailers or double wides, atypical construction methods.
Yep.
So modular is really a process. It's not a type of home.
Sure.
There's nothing different in the code, the structure, the energy rating, the materials, or the design. It's just a different process. But as far as a modular company, where we try to differentiate is, going well above and beyond the limits.
Okay.
And that's what we seek out. If we were cookie cuttering it every day, I wouldn't last.
Right.
So how crazy can we make it? And, in-house we have architecture. We have a licensed architect. We have a full staff engineering department, a drafting department, purchasing. And it just goes back to earlier of how much can we control our environment.
Sure.
And we've worked with collaborated with a lot of other architects.
Sure.
We've got a group of architects coming in tomorrow from mid-Wisconsin.
Okay.
But just offering that, what do you want to do? How can we do it? How can we be a part of it? As long as most of it's built out of wood, we can do it. Sure.
I find that super interesting. I love that you're kind of changing these preconceptions.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people have that. Mm-hmm. So to listen to you talk about it is exciting. So you mentioned you kind of got off to a rocky start when you started off with the engineering stuff.
Yeah, they didn't like me.
What's that dynamic then when you're like working with family? I would imagine that's kind of one of the difficulties of working with family, or how does that dynamic kind of work?
That's been every book, article, blog, post, psychology report on family businesses. It's just been, how do you do it? Not have everyone kill each other.
Right.
Because, again, we're a North Side Italian family. Yep. Sunday dinners are a thing, still are every Sunday, and it's just
awesome.
You're your own little micro tight-knit community within the community.
Mm-hmm.
So, you see, like I'd see my dad every day at work, and then you see him at night and on weekends and birthday parties and everything, helping build decks or cleaning out my garage. So, it's just kind of that expectation of, we're at work, let's do work things, and then when we're not at work, let's not do it. So, and it was a mutual decision to jettison me from there. So,
okay.
That wasn't a problem.
Right.
But there are some times, where passionate discussions carry over.
Passionate discussions between Italians, that never happens.
It's first recorded event in history. Yeah. Just a lot of hand waving and yelling.
I was going to say, you talk with your hands.
A lot of, sailor talk. But it's interesting because it's, I think having that family business involved gives it more of a permanency. And then with a lot of the guys here talking at other businesses that they've been in, then coming here, you're like, well, I could get fired. This guy could get fired. Who knows what's going to happen? Where here, it's, we're together for better or for worse. So
sure.
You got either you make it work or you pull the plug. And, that's kind of been the force of, we got to make this work and get along because no one's going anywhere.
Right.
So how do we accomplish that? So it just gave us a different perspective on daily business activities.
Sure. So as your career has kind of grown over, really the past 18 years that you've been here,
yeah.
How has your role kind of changed or progressed? Increase in responsibility, or
I think it's the normal, learn on the job training process. When I started here, my Uncle Paul was in charge, and I worked under him and all the other project managers here, and just kind of learn from the ground floor up. And it's the same method my dad did when my brother and I were younger. Skirting those child labor laws again. We would. Summer vacations and holidays and spring breaks where, you help out in the factory or you help out in inventory or you pick up garbage. So you start at the ground and, every year we'd get more and more responsibility up to when they'd trust us operating power tools.
Sure.
And it wasn't any different here. It was, project manager assistant. I was running copies and helping with jobs and, doing site visits and working with plans to then undertaking my own projects and then growing that. Now I'm taking my own projects and managing all the other project managers. So it's just been an odd reverse look of, it's always next guy up. So.
Sure. So also as far as like evolution goes, obviously trends change with not only the housing market, but houses in general. I noticed one example on your website is now you guys are offering tiny homes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, that's kind of become the in vogue thing the last few years.
And that got on our radar about 8 years ago. We had a client down in Eagle River, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And waterfront property, seasonal vacationers, kind of typical Midwest snowbird. Mm-hmm. And, when we met with them, they didn't want the everyday average 2,000 square foot home. The size, the maintenance, the cost, and everything involved. So that first house ended up being like 533 square feet.
Wow.
And it was perfect for them,
Yeah.
And, that was kind of interesting because it was something different. It was a unique design and everything going into it. And, so many people at that time were thinking, how can we get a bigger house, where now people wanted a smaller house? So, we kind of chewed on that for a few years. And we had designs and photos, and a lot of people would come in from time to time kind of, that's kind of neat. And it really introduced the way people thought about, not what they wanted, but what they really needed.
Right.
And it led to a lot of interesting conversations. And, we kind of chipped away at it for years. And then, HGTV's shows and a lot of other, and that kind of really threw gasoline on that little spark, and it took off. We've since put up a model here that's 601 square feet, and, it's been, the draw on it's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
On weekends we have people that, we drove from Madison or Duluth or all over. Ryan told me we have people coming up from southern lower Michigan they want to see it because, it's a really unique trend. And, we kind of put our spin on it. It's not the mobile version that you wheel around that's 100 square feet, that the, closet dual functions as the bathtub. It's, more of an appropriate sized home, and it's really just to give people ideas. And after we put up that model, I don't think we would have anywhere planned to get the response and demand that we did. So
sure. I think, from my side of it, I feel like the world just keeps getting busier and busier and hectic and cluttered. Mm-hmm. So if you can have a home that's the opposite of that, where you get home and everything's just simple, that's attractive. As I'm just saying it, I'm like, man, that sounds really great.
Easy.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about the maintenance and the upkeep and all of that. So I'll be very curious to kind of see where that trend goes. The other one that was really interesting to me, because I absolutely love log homes, is your hybrid log home that you have. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because up here, especially up here in God's country, that's kind of a big draw, I would think.
We've got a lot of requests to do log homes, and just because of the nature, it never really fit our system and our process. But where we kind of found the happy medium on the niche is what we would, or actually since 98 have called hybrid log homes. And it's kind of the merging of the two process. You have the traditional fully insulated either 6 or 8 inch exterior wall, and then the exterior is just a split log exterior. It's not anything carved out. It's literally a log split in half. And then that allows the inside to be whatever the client wants, wherever they want. If they want to keep it more in the full rustic or go into other, softer spaces. And it's just a very flexible platform for people. So I want the rustic charm. I want more energy. I want more flexibility. And it's really worked out.
Yeah, I think as people get more and more conscious of, like you said, efficiency.
Yeah.
But also keeping what we love about the UP, the outdoors and nature, and that more kind of rustic feel, it's totally a win-win.
Yeah, and the maintenance part of it too. Real log homes are beautiful, but just the involvement of owning it is it's a big commitment, and trying to give an alternative to getting that look and feel and charm, but without going all in on it.
You touched a little bit before about how somebody came up from lower Michigan, and you've heard from people down in Wisconsin and all over. Have you guys been kind of expanding that reach as, I mean, because let's be honest, the population of the UP has begun to kind of shrink, and it has been gradually for quite some time.
Yeah.
So as that kind of happens, do you then kind of increase those feelers that you kind of put out? Or I mean,
and that's
is that a challenge?
You're hitting on a nerve.
On a nerve.
That's been a long debated internal conversation.
Sure.
And a lot of people want to expand and go further reach, and our decision has been, we don't want to overextend our arm where we can't really have control.
Sure.
The further away you go, the harder that control is. Our radius right now is Michigan, Wisconsin, and mostly the eastern half of Minnesota.
Okay.
And we're comfortable with that.
Sure.
We've always got inquiries about going to Iowa and Illinois. And that's just the involvement in it. We couldn't offer, the end quality home that we want to.
Sure.
And we've dabbled in it. We've explored it. I mean, we've gone to Canada for some specialty projects, but it's just, we just can't really control that.
Sure.
And I think it would dilute the product. And, that's not where we want to go. We're busy enough that we don't need to start looking further.
And well, busy's a good thing.
Yeah.
So,
but that's an interesting point you bring up on, even the local area population. It's just, the UP really has a lot of the lakes, access to the Great Lakes,
sure,
and everything else, and that just keeps bringing people to the area.
Right.
And maybe they're not full-time residents, but it's at least bringing, something back.
Yeah.
And hopefully create, most of what you see in here is people coming back to the area that either were from here and want to come back, or retire, or move their family here, or people just that have never been here that, we want to get there.
Yeah, well, and I think I kind of think back to the interview that I did with Gina from over at Bay West. So shout out to Gina, but talking about, in the next 5 years, they're projecting 500 or 600 production jobs that are going to be available in this area. Well, number one, they need people to fill those jobs, but then all those people are going to need places to live. Support
staff, food, clothes, schools, cars, gas stations.
Yeah, I mean, you add that type of workforce to any community, and there's going to be needs that need to be filled,
And I've seen the same numbers, and it varies from anywhere from 300 to 700 people in the next few years.
Yeah.
And there are great jobs here.
Right.
For people that want a little bit off the beaten track, off not a hustle and bustle area. I mean, it's a great place to raise kids, have a family. The cost of living is great.
Well, and you're in a very unique position to, I feel like you're highly qualified to speak on those things, just from the standpoint of obviously being in the industry that you're in. I mean, would you say it's fair to say that you guys kind of have your thumb on the pulse a little bit of, I mean...
I don't want to give me too much credit.
Well, I don't mean to toot your horn too much, but I'm just saying, I mean...
I see a lot of it, or we intersect with a lot of other people that are looking at expanding the area in other ways through residential, commercial, or industrial projects. And it's, there's just a demand here of this area.
Sure.
Filling it's the hard part. I mean, we're having these same problems. I mean, if I could hire more carpenters, electricians, draftsmen, engineers, project managers tomorrow, I would.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get them
here, right? Well, and that I was going to ask you what other sort of challenges you have, and you kind of just answered that question, because obviously...
The biggest challenge we have is just staffing all the positions we want staffed.
Sure.
Which is it's always weird. I mean, I guess that's a good sign for the area about, kind of what the health is of the area, but, we got to draw and be able to fill those spots. And then the area could expand so much more.
Sure. Do you guys partner with Bay at all, or do any internships, or I guess partner with any other local companies or agencies?
There's a lot of good local organizations that are trying to draw or hire staff, and that are really working hard to do that. And last year we did a few projects with, we were working with the building trades.
Awesome. That was one of the ones I was thinking of.
And getting them more cross involved, and, even offering internships for graduating seniors before they go to college that want some experience in, different industries. So we had an intern last year for our office here, and then we added a couple of guys that in the summer between school, worked in the factory or helped out learning carpentry.
Awesome.
And we're trying to partner with Building Trades More. I think we have one coming up this summer from Florence that's going to be working in our CAD or drafting department. And then they actually have a program there through Florence that, if he's comes and works for a few hours a day here during the school year, he gets credit and everything else.
That's really great. I mean, the more that we can do to incentivize students and kids to get into these trades,
it's a great opportunity there. I mean, I almost stayed a carpenter. I almost didn't want to go to college, and it's like, I'm happy to be a carpenter. And now through all the companies, through carpentry or woodworking or drafting or welding or anything else, I mean, there are great opportunities. So
sure.
But yeah, so we're trying to work and grow just to educate people on the trades, get more people involved or exposure to it to see, is this maybe a career I'd want to go into? And if there's anything else we could do, we would do it tomorrow. We're always looking to grow that.
Well, I hope that this episode kind of shines a light on that, because I think a lot of people, they think of like Marquette County as like the hub of everything going on. But, I talk with people like you or with Gina, or even, when I'm having lunch with your brother-in-law, John, shout out to John. He's been on the podcast too. Shout out to Spigs. There's a lot of energy and awesome stuff that's happening here in Dickinson County. And I think the more that we can kind of like shout it from the rooftops and let people know, I feel like it can continue to snowball.
I hope so. I mean, I hope it takes off, because I'd like to see the area, just stay healthy, and, younger generations coming up as needed, and, just to keep the area going. There's so much here to let it, really kind of not be used to its full potential.
Absolutely. Well, we've hit on everything that I kind of had on my list. Was there anything else that we didn't touch on that you would want to add, or anything else that you want to throw out there?
No, I'm a long-time listener, so I'm glad or honored to finally be on your podcast. And I mean, you've done a great job highlighting just all different parts of the UP, so I hope you keep it up.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, since you're such a loyal listener, and my last question that's coming up, how do you like your pasty?
Plain.
Just plain?
Plain. If you have to put anything on it, it's not good to begin with. So I've had a lot of great pasties in the UP, everywhere from the bridge all the way to even through some people through northern Wisconsin that try. I got to give a shout out to Chef Simon and Michaela at the Chippewa Club, who really do have the secret UP pasty that I enjoy a lot. So.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. This has been a great chat.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, it's time for the takeaways from my chat with Mario. The first one is purposeful planning. For a family business to last 50 years and beyond is a fantastic accomplishment. And that doesn't mean that things are always smooth sailing, especially working in the housing business like Dickinson Homes does. But from what I've gathered from talking to Mario is they've done a really great job over the years of being forward thinking to stay ahead of the curve and being really purposeful behind what it is that they're doing. So I just really think they're a great example of, if you take the time to put purpose behind your actions, you can have a whole lot of success. My second takeaway from chatting with Mario is family, and just how important family really is. I absolutely love that his family still gets together for Sunday dinners, and my family actually does the exact same thing. And keeping that closeness, I think, is really kind of part of the secret sauce for them. And it's really easy to see that family mentality carried over into their business. And actually, I can speak about this firsthand because my parents' home is a Dickinson home. And when they bought it back in the day as a young couple just starting out, they were allowed to go into the warehouse after hours, and they were able to paint the exterior of the home themselves in order to save money just to be able to afford the house. And really the best part of that is my parents' story isn't unique. I know of other people with similar experiences from Dickinson Homes, and really from businesses all across the UP. You're going to hear similar stories like that because that's just what Youpers do. We take care of our own because at the end of the day, we're one big family. Chat It Up is a bi-weekly podcast about all things Upper Peninsula of Michigan. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, rate, and leave me a review. You can also find Chat It Up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening in. I'm your host, Shooter, reminding you to keep your chin up and your eyes forward.